hour here. So,
All right, so we have a great call today with
yeah,
Mr.
I just have to stay. I just have to keep it within 1 hour. Like, be mindful of the pace because I have another call to jump in right after. Just so we. That's why
Okay.
I would rather, like, if we have it on the weekend would work a little bit better because I would be more free than, for the weekdays. But anyway, that's how, at the end of the day, the reality
Right.
is always the best occasion, right?
Yeah.
Well, Sean, why don't you go ahead if you need to introduce, today is Tuesday and February 4th, I believe, February 4th in the year 2025. So, Sean, I know that maybe you want to go ahead and just say a couple of words, and then
Yeah.
I'm gonna introduce Fabiano, and let Fabiano tell his story and his perceptions and beliefs and whatever and science, whatever he wants to share, and then we're gonna wrap it up. We're gonna try to do it like we are going to do it because, like Fabiano just said, he has another obligation. So we're on that 1 hour time schedule. So go ahead, Sean, if you want to say a word, and
Yeah,
then we'll jump right
just
in.
we be mindful of the pace. Sometimes the talk, gets too interesting, and then we be close to three, and then we have to wrap it up. So just be mindful of that,
Fabiano,
and I
that's
think
never
it's gonna be
happened. We
fine.
always stay within an hour.
Not.
I'm just kidding, man. But hey, we got Fabiano Diaz with us today with BitWage. Fabiano, you are an expert in this in Bitcoin currency and this whole new reality that we're experiencing with money and currency value. So, with that being said, thank you so much for joining us today. Tell us a little bit about yourself, about BitWage, and where you see crypto and these markets going, and how you're playing a part in that.
Thank you for having me, Sean. Thanks, David, for the invitation. It's great to be here. Thank you for introducing me as an expert. I have this thing that, for someone to really be a master in an art, he has to devote at least 20 years, and the art has to have 1,000 years. So, and the whole Bitcoin space was formed, in 2009, being released around 2008. So I don't think it's enough time to really form an expert in it, one to be respected, because sometimes people, if I claim to be expert in an area that it's shallow, actually, yeah, I'm, despising my own self, as an expert in something. So, but I do have an experience of professional experience of 9 years now in February. And I started investigating the Bitcoin phenomena at least 1 year before that, and that's when how I found the guys, Jonathan Chester and John Lindsay. They were creating BitWage at the time, which was a system that would allow people to receive salary despite having a bank account. So when John Lindsay created it, he saw those people in lines cashing those checks. In many cases, immigrants. And then he thought, well, with this technology, people won't have to cash just these checks anymore because they can be the fees were pretty high. And so that was one way of applying the Bitcoin technology to solve a certain problem. But as the years went up, as the years went by, the use case for Bitcoin as a cross-border, super efficient over Swift kind of tool and overcame this use case of a banking, even though the way the system is set, it still offers that. It still allows people to receive their wages and they don't need to have a bank account. But the use case for cross-border payments and later on the so-called stable coins, which people that are not acquainted are Bitcoin-based, crypto-based currencies that are one-to-one with the dollar. They became popular because of that. They, spawned from the international payment, the Bitcoin use case, and they don't uh, bury the volatility that Bitcoin do in setting these international payments. And so Bitwage became increasingly popular in these markets where the USDT, the USDC, the so-called stable coins were more efficient than the banking rails for people that have their wages in US dollars. And that's how he managed to grow and succeed. In 2017, We won a prize in France for innovation. Back then, the government of France had an innovation prize for startups, and BitWage was one of them selected. That's probably when things kind of solidified. It was 2017. I had 1 year in the company. It was a great thing for all of us, especially for the guys, the creators, right? And then after that, in Brazil became, Brazil is super into being an early adopter. So and so Brazil was the first market where B2H really grew, and alongside with the Philippines, because the Philippines have a lot of workforce, usually help desk kind of workforce because they speak English, so that's a good entry for companies in the US to hire those Filipinos. And later on Argentina because of the dollar demand, and now with the advent of the stable coins, we started providing these dollars to Argentinian professionals that have jobs in American companies, and that's how we came about. That's how we got into where we are. And just to give a little background, as I said Saturday, about how why David got me invited, because we worked together even before that. We come before that actually. I met David back in 2009, probably when I was working at the state park, which is a state government agency that is in charge of the preservation of the area that they call park. Back then, everything above 100 meters high was considered park. Now they have expanded it into other kinds of vegetation that are below 100 meters. And then we were at an agency that were in charge of preserving that area. And then David, because he has the project at the island, which is at the same place, the coast of the state of São Paulo here in Brazil, is this area called Mata Atlântica, which is the Atlantic rainforest. Is this place where the hills and the sea are really close to each other. It's a beautiful place, but also a very dense kind of forest at the same time. So very difficult to develop on, even difficult to make a trail on. And me and David, we hit right away. And then I moved to Sao Paulo. I was doing other projects at the time. And then I came back later to family issues. I had to run a family restaurant. And then David was really doing more stuff at the island at that point. And then we started working together. And that lasted over the years of 2012, 2013. That's when I had to move back to Sao Paulo and conduct other projects at the time. And David's still there, so it's been almost more than a decade now, and it been doing nice things at the island. David has, and has a lot of respect from local people too. Of course, has a lot of problems with local people too, especially the whole authority bureaucracy thing. That's also always a part of those kind of projects, I believe. And well, I guess that's it for a little bit of introduction. I hope I have not rambled at this point.
Well, you did a great job. Sean, did you want to, if you're listening, if you want to go ahead and make a comment, or I can go ahead and jump right in and then we'll just keep flowing here. That was a great introduction. Thank you, Fabiano.
Great
Go ahead, Sean.
introduction. And
Yeah.
Fabio, there's so many people out there watching this podcast like me that know nothing about this whole subculture of currencies. So even though you haven't, and I understand what you're saying with 20 years, and I greatly respect that. But I think that, there's a whole new generation of people out there like myself that hear a lot about it, but really know very little about it. And, there's so many different variations of it. So I think from an educational standpoint, it's really beneficial for people like myself to get a deeper understanding and have an expert like yourself that's available that can answer the questions and give us more information on, where this is at, where it's going, more importantly. I think we've all, even the doubters now can see clearly that this is not going away. This is growing, expanding, and this is the future. So thank you once again for being on today.
Yeah.
Well,
Thanks,
thank you
Fabiano.
again, Sean, for having me once again, and
Where,
thank you, Dave, as well.
how do you
Yeah.
how do you see this
What I
developing?
could
How,
go
how do
ahead,
you
go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, how
So
do you see this developing and where's the whole thing going right now with crypto and with these types of currencies?
I think that the best background I can give answering the first question is that first of all, there's Bitcoin, and everything that there is after that are just sons of Bitcoin. They're derived from Bitcoin, right? Then, from the first dissidents of Bitcoin were these programmers that they wanted to do with the code, because Bitcoin is an open source kind of software, meaning that the code is open for everyone to do whatever they want with it. If they want to add it and create something new out of that, they're totally free to do it. And then this group of programmers said, "Oh, there's more stuff we can do with the Bitcoin technology," and then they created Ethereum. Okay, and of course, there was a little, there were other changes before that, people doing little changes on the Bitcoin code here and there and creating similar coins. At the time, they were called colored coins. They were trying to be Bitcoin, but with a few tweaks here and there, or make it kind of proprietary, meaning that, we create a group of developers that can change the rules. Where in Bitcoin, you can do that, but you cannot accept people to uh, consider that legit, and they would there is a tendency for Bitcoin for people to keep at the legacy network. And now with the Ethereum development, people were starting thinking that, oh, we can use this to make, because part of the technology of Bitcoin makes writing with the so-called blockchain. So you write on it and it can be deleted, it can be corrupted, and so people felt that, a great chance in it to make for, all sorts of, assets could be converted into tokens and now negotiated in, some sort of market. And all those developments that were done on top of Bitcoin, the only one that is really useful these days is the so-called stable coins. That doesn't mean that the others, or Ethereum or all these others are bad stuff necessarily. They're just not, they have not delivered the promise that they, first came with. But will they ever? There's a great chance in it. Okay. But they're just the student potential of it. They're just not there yet. Okay. And then so we have two applications in this world that people use on a daily basis. One is called Bitcoin, and the other one is called stable coins. And the Bitcoin, because the Bitcoin is there's a mechanism of consensus, the so-called proof of work. So they force people to still trust the legacy network, meaning that there's one that everybody agrees that is the real Bitcoin, and they tend to stick by it. So that's a marvel in the Bitcoin ingenuity that, forces people with different intentions to work for the same network. So there's no point for me in just creating a new Bitcoin and like forcing people to follow whatever changes I apply to it if they don't agree with it, because they will lose value, right? So it forces people with different intentions to agree with the same thing. For that reason and some others, that makes Bitcoin for the best form of money ever created by the humanity. That's the claim of many, professionals, that people you might have seen in the media, such as Michael Saylor, or other even classic, investors like Larry Fink. And I tend to agree with that too. I think that is the utmost, the most sophisticated form of money ever created is Bitcoin. It's inspired by all the other forms of money created before it, and trying to make it secure enough so it's not corrupted by the powers, or for people that have more money uh stored with them than other people. So they not cannot, be ruled, from top to bottom. And is there a room for, other assets, other coins, other currencies, or free market of money, or anything of the sort? I believe there is. I think that we're going to get to that at some point. All these developments into these other, thousands of currencies that we see today. At some point, we should settle in some use cases, and but to a point where there's still going to be I think there's more room for the US dollar that the people tend to believe. As long as in the United States, as long as the culture of the United States keeps being that one where it encourages people to go to enterprise, to be creative, to employ people in creative ways, because that won't happen. That is not the culture of Europe or China or Russia, right? You don't see people in Russia saying, "Oh, let me hire a bunch of, start a software and hire." There are some initiatives like that in Russia, be that in China or in Japan, but nowhere compared to the US, right? And then the language is one thing, right? That's then we would have to go back to the whole culture and how things came to be, the history of America, so to say. But even the America that speaks Spanish, it has more vocation of, setting up something new, creating a software. Places like Brazil and the whole Spanish America are more inclined to be more creative and go to enterprise than the old Europe and Asia and all these countries. So for that reason, most of the people tend to work for the US dollar, despite being a dollar created by the Fed, the Federal Reserve, or being a dollar created by these tech companies, such as the USDT by the Tether, which is located in El Salvador now, and the USDC, which is in United States, in New York, and other initiatives that, tend to be a competitor of them. At the end, the tendency, even though we might have, a plethora of currencies, if tomorrow, if I'm mistaken, and then we end up with 1,000 currencies circulating, be that from countries or not, the only way to keep them honest is having Bitcoin as a collateral. That's the whole thing that happened with money in the 20th century, right? It lost the collateral, and it allowed for governments to create as much money as they can, under the presumption of, oh, if we lower the interest rates for a certain area of business, like we want more cars, and then we lower the interest rates for cars, and we want more computers, we lower the interest rates for computers, and then the next day a congressman is the owner of a computer company or a car company, because it's all based on privileged information. That's the whole problem of the system of money today, and that's the one thing that Bitcoin is aimed to solve, and then I believe it's going to be successful. I hope I have addressed the question, Sean.
Yeah, Sean, go ahead if you want to chime in, or I'll jump in. Go ahead. Let me know, Sean. All right. It seems like maybe Sean is just preoccupied doing something else. But Fabiano, just want to thank you for explaining some of the complexity of the world that you live in. And that this particular conversation is a little bit different than others that we've had on this World Impact News, the WIN Network. This show called Showtime is what we're coming up with all these names and stuff now. It's so great. Everyone's really kind of taking ownership. So even like you can come in the WIN Network and have like a 1 hour like boot camp. Call it whatever you want, BitWage boot camp, and you can teach people, you know, really the full spirit of what you're dealing with is very interesting when you talk about labor. Because a short story about you and I, when we met, we were in one of the beach towns here where we were living, because the island wasn't really able to be occupied full time. It was abandoned. We had a lot of work, and like Fabiano said, back in 2013 or whatever, we had a lot to do together, and Fabiano volunteered. So Fabiano never received a payment here, and neither have I. And so back in the day, we had Workaway, which is like a virtual nomad or a backpackers, program where usually young kids that don't know what they want to do in life, mostly young, but we did have a couple of older people, which was great. It was wonderful to get that variety. But anyways, Fabiano helped manage the Workaway volunteers and had them up in his home, and we fed them, and we did that for almost 2 years or so. We had, I think, 85 or 90 or so. I lost count, but Fabiano was more friendly with everyone. I was more like the dictator, telling people what to do when they came over here, and always stressed out. I was the type of guy like everyone else, never had enough time to do the things that we needed to do. And Fabiano can even attest to this personally. when I came here, we tried to manage the project like you would like a normal project to identify, the critical path, the like necessity, like we need to do this, this, and this. And we couldn't do that exercise. And people were always on top of me. And the volunteers would say, how can we help you? You don't have a plan. And I said, look around you. There's like 1,000 things that are like in a critical a need to be done. There's no reason for me to every morning list the same things over and over and over again. When this place is in balance, or any place that we live in, our home, our place of work, when we are in balance, there's no need to manage anything like a project. You just stay in the present moment and everything happens. And that's what we're talking about on this particular kind of motivational, like coaching, like hour. Most of the time we get people like yourself, Fabiano, that's promoting. Obviously, BitWage is a viable service that is the reputable people behind it, a lot of history, and it is connected with the like you said, it's the equality, that there's really one security. And it's not a government or some other entity that's securing that, like a bond or something. This is the security of our being able to have peer-to-peer networks and be able to have these type of broadcasts where it's unedited. And when we say and do something, at some point, if you get called on it, you got to go to court or something. You can be authentic and say, yeah, damn right, I said that, and I fucking meant it. You know what I'm saying? It might not have been the most appropriate thing, but I did say it. So, the systems that we have now with blockchain, like you said, Fabiano, Bitcoin was a pioneering, like, breakthrough concept, because it eliminated the bureaucracy, and it created that guaranteed transparency so that every coin has a transactional path. So every time anything is transferred, it's monitored. Now there are negative sides to there's positive and negative to everything. But the number one issue that I face, because I do dabble in the idea of BitWage and bartering in a time bank. And Fabiano and I have spoken numerous hours in the evening, having a cocktail, whatever, playing some music and casual. But he knows that I'm not against Bitcoin or money or gold or any commodity or inventoriable asset. I'm not against it. But like Fabiano said, when you don't have the ability to really not even manage that, but there is no management, because these are supposedly scarce resources on Earth that have a value. That's why the market values them. And then the Bitcoin can then be mined and what have you. But the money is one side. The other side is the BitWage, in my opinion. So it's Bitcoin plus BitWage equals game over, because now you have both. And if in the BitWage we could do a campaign together, and that's what this is about. It's about synergizing together. So even Sean, where he is in Virginia, I mean, he has employees and he knows a bunch of people. So if he mentions BitWage, call Fabiano, set up your account. And these are programs for not even the people that Sean knows, but in India, for example, we just had Dr. Goswami on the phone. I think it was yesterday. All these days are intermingling. But what's important is it's like timely, because Dr. Goswami in India, there's about 600 million people that are unbanked. They don't have a bank account. So you're talking about a project. He has 1,000 of these community gardens. He has the land. He has it all mapped out. He's a professor. He's actually a music teacher of all things. But now he's getting into healthy food and soil remediation and using music and putting on concert, like what we're doing with the Hibernation Festival coming up on February 21st to March 1st. And Fabiano knows we've invited Fabiano to be a keynote speaker and actually hopefully be here live. But if not, we're going to do the things that we do, regardless, as long as we do something and it's recorded and we're taking actions, and that Fabiano's pipeline starts filling up with qualified contacts, so he can get out the good service that he's doing, and that we can help expand into these creative tokens. And like you said, Bitcoin's not going away. One of the gentlemen that Sean knows, and Fabiano, I mentioned this gentleman, Mel Carmine. And it's important because Mel is the XRP, the king of XRP. And he says that Bitcoin is going to go bye-bye only because XRP now is using this technology that the transaction time is 1-to-1. So when you get these token or you get a credit, however you get some value, you can exchange it right that moment. You don't have to wait like a 4-hour mining period. It doesn't have to go through like a clearinghouse. It's instantaneous. And how does that work with like the labor market? There's a lot of times, like even we get people here that don't have any money, but if they work in the gardens, they can get these time coins and a time credit, which is basically the BitWage. What we would do is take on these financial accounts and reinvest them in like Fabiano. So he would be like a financial steward or a broker, and we would make public announcement that that's our investment plan. So as we start generating revenues, call it crowdfunding or whatever, basically what people are going to do is buy up time. Why wouldn't you? You invest in yourself first. Buy your time credits. We allow up to 2,000 time credits in your online account. And then when you have the time credit, if you need to go to BitWage or some other, even cash or whatever denomination, you can make that transfer. You do have to pay a transfer fee from time to money, but you do not pay a fee from money to time. And that's what's going to happen. People are going to, I'm not going to say they're going to bail totally like on Bitcoin, but the fact is, and this is what Mel Carmine talks about, Bitcoin started at zero. It started at nothing. And so typically it's a cyclical thing. You go from zero to nothing. But Bitcoin may be that example of, infinite innovation and growth and abundancy and thriving. And, that's the whole spirit of the Bitcoin idea. And so for me, I want to let Fabiano chime in a little bit here because I don't want to go off in too many tangents. But ultimately, when I was with Fabiano, he didn't have a job. So he got lucky when he did what he did, bro. And now he's actually sitting pretty. I mean, he has some other issues personally with loss in his family, and I know the family, and we all grieve together for that. But 27 years, Fabiano knows my wife, Maria, and I are not going anywhere. We are vested. Our roots, our seed is here, our sperm, our egg, everything, our money and our time. Between my wife and myself, we've invested over 200,000 hours, 200,000 hours that nobody compensated us for. And if we had something like BitWage, we can get reimbursed for all of that time. It may take a little bit of time, but it's payback. It's payback day for Sean, for Fabiano, anyone listening to this call. That's the whole idea. If you have a project, if you have a dream and you can't live it out, and it's innovative and it helps humanity and it helps everybody, including yourself, obviously, everyone includes you. And if you have these type of ambitions, that's the idea of this show, Fabiano. Showtime. You come in on the hot seat and you can present whatever you want. And before you get off the call, within an hour, you have resources. It's like a think tank on steroids. So when you have a dilemma, or if you want to make a job change, or you're worried about your future, or however, or a mental health issue or a physical issue, or whatever it is, we are equipped with this service, which would include the Bitcoin and the BitWage in a combination. And so go ahead. I don't know. I'm rambling a little bit, but I don't know if I sparked a little bit of a memory on your part, Fabiano, recalling a lot of stuff. We're going back a long time.
I'm going to go over some points, Dave. Let's go. I'm going to go over some points from end to beginning. Like that you were mentioned, we are great friends, right? We've been together through these so many years. I mean, I wasn't even, because we met in 2009, there was not even Bitcoin barely in 2009, or I didn't even know what it was, right? So, and uh and then get the time. But one thing that ties it all is that we always had this idea of creating alternative currencies, right? Back at the time, we had the uh, the idea of creating something similar to Banco Palmas or to that other experience in India, and then we try to equate something similar to it. And one of the projects that we know we've been working on, and they are right now, at some stage, stuck at some stage of the things that are hosted in the island. As for the BitWage proposal, I mean, the idea of BitWage was always to try to have someone receive their salaries not only into US dollars anymore, but into whatever asset that they want to, with the least amount of bank in the middle as possible, right? That's the philosophy of Bitcoin, and that's, what bit plus wage means. Today, for someone in the US, the best thing to do is because in BitWage you can receive a certain percentage of your salary into Bitcoin. For someone in the US, I would say that, mandatory, the only real savings that there is in the economy today is Bitcoin. So every professional, every person in the US economically active should be worrying now in stacking some Bitcoin. They should consider their Bitcoin as a scoring in a game. So the economy life is a game, and your score is Bitcoin. And like in any score, that its validity cannot go below zero. But if you add a little bit of score every day, it means you're getting better at it. Okay, and would that expand to other currencies or assets like a time coin, whatever, or even XRP, like you mentioned? Well, me personally, I don't trust any other currency that is not backed by Bitcoin. Okay, so the same way that no one should trust a currency that is not backed by metal, like it was in the past, and redeemable under the promise that this bill is under metal. We should go back to the era where any currency should be redeemable by a certain quantity of Bitcoin, a certain percentage of a Bitcoin wallet stored publicly and redeemable at any time, or inside a certain cycle or time. Right? You can take, oh, this is redeemable from the day you got it, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, be that even 10 years, but redeemable into a certain quantity of Bitcoin or a percentage of that given wallet in Bitcoin, so to give value to it. So otherwise, the value is determined by the one that creates it. If he creates more, it's less valuable. If he tries to remove it, as some governments done over the time, Brazil, India, they remove some of the currency in order to try to solve the inflation problem. Well, that's quite a trick too, right? We went back to that whole, privilege information, Cantillon effect kind of problem, that the ones that remove it, they don't do it from one day to the other. They have to discuss it in meetings, and those meetings become privileged information, and people are benefited by it. So that's a corrupted incentive into these kind of currencies, and currencies that try to, like the time coin or anything that try to symbolize an asset that we're having a hard time to value in the real world. I think those are welcome projects, that me and Dave had, hours of conversation about it. We really want to make something happen. And I think that what ties it up in the end is what ties me to the island and to Bitwage and to Bitcoin technology in general is the internet, right? Is that channel that allows us, a guy like me, a guy in Brazil. Back when I met David, I had never been abroad, so the only means that we can get together and share experiences, share knowledge is the internet. Let me shut the window. It's raining real hard. So this is kind of an appeal to anyone that's listening, that if you can get in contact with David and maybe find some time to go over to the island and try to bridge the communication from David. Bridge the communication, David's communication and Maria's too, to the internet and the whole world, to understand what David is sitting on this island. It has a whole history. It is a piece of land that has like amazing history and amazing potential too. So if anyone is listening and really wants to, try and get in contact with David and try to make, whatever is going on in the island to the public, try to bridge that, try to funnel, to transform what's going on at the island and what David tries to express with his years of work there. Really a work that was never based on, I can say that many years going over to the island and knowing David and Maria, which I consider like one of my best friends in life, that they are not doing that for any kind of, personal, other than their soul and spirit engrandment. So they're not doing that because they're gonna come out of that, more famous or, more beautiful in any kind, but just trying to do really the right thing. And if I think that, and that's one of the discussions we always had, me and Marie and David, that how much I believe that the island and whatever's going on there should be more on the internet. If it's in the form of a currency, okay, but if it's in the form of simple communication to the world, that will be a great thing in itself. I guess that's if I could make a point.
Yeah, you made a very good point. It brought tears to my eyes. I don't know about anyone listening,
Nice.
but when we start talking about, a big guy like Fabiano starts talking about cuddly things like unconditional love. Oh my God, like it's so melty in here. Anyways, thank you. That's the God's honest truth, though. The work that we do is not really work when we apply our passion and the gifts that we have. It's really a pleasure, having had an opportunity to meet Fabiano the way that we have and to see the development of his own person, his character, um, and his loyalty and faith and all that goes along with just being a good person. And that's what we all want to be around is good people. If there's some bad people mixed in, that's where, instead of the herd all jumping off the cliff, we need to, stop, turn around, regroup, and try to comfort. That's what like Sean does with the work that he does. Fabiano, you're more in the financial, kind of advisory or how do people apply their whatever value, wealth, earnings, or whatever. But Sean's more into the actual like what do you purchase and how do you get the benefits of the health care that we all striving for is that perfect health, which means that when somebody asks, how are you feeling, 1 out of 10, it's 10. I mean, there's nothing else. And so, this is the where we are right now. Why not? I mean, the idea of perfection or like utopia or this moneyless society or whatever. See, we are at the doorway of those pioneering, innovative ideas of really moving away, not away, but basically transforming the need to have money or any of what we just were talking about for this particular episode, any type of asset. The natural resources that we have, like right here, like Fabiano mentioned, Costa Sul, the mountains come right to the beach, and the beach runs a straight line. There's 15 beach communities, each individual community, maybe like 5,000 people or so. So they're not like huge. There's no high rises, and there are a few hotels and mostly bed and breakfasts. And we get like 3 million tourists that come into this area. And the ocean is beautiful, the archipelago and everything is the natural resources here, like Fabiano said, are just your world class, equal with New Zealand or Costa Rica or Hawaii, wherever else you might have an imagination of some, the Philippines or whatever, and Fiji, wherever. It's just the point is we have everything. We have everything. But what we don't have is that unity of the labor force here. Because even Fabiano would admit when he goes in the community, ask, what about this gringo that's living on that island, point to Isla Ascovis out over here. People don't know what's going on. And Fabiano even said he recommended that Maria and I get our story out because now he realizes the importance of it and the significance of the longevity and being able to hold the space. That's all that my wife and I really, our goal was to hold the space of this island so it could be a home, HOME, for humanity. Okay. So in the future, there's no owner of this island. It is a nation. It's a micronation. It's called We Landia. And I'm not going to get into all of those mechanisms, but the important thing here is that the work that Fabiano has already invested here, it's payback time for him too. So these time credits, what we're going to do is we're going to come to some term. It doesn't have to happen right now, but it could be public. It could be during this event, the Hibernation Festival. Anyone involved, we settled our debt. And people that like Fabiano, we can talk about it. So if he says, David, realistically, I spend nights sometimes, I'm awake and I can't get you out of my head. That's very valuable for me. Not that I want anyone doing that. Like, you know what I'm saying? I wouldn't recommend. That's usually a nightmare for most people. It's not really a pleasurable thing. But what I'm saying is sometimes we have these mind blowing conversations and we conflict on it, not conflict like argumentatively, but when we go into areas of the unknown in the fog and there's really not much clarity, like we can't replicate it, we can guarantee it, we can bond it, we can insure it, but we can't really make it happen. We can do everything other than make it happen. And that's the point right now. This Hibernation Festival coming up in a couple of weeks for 8 days and 7 nights. Fabiano understands the dynamics here. It's possible that we can pull it off because everything is in one line. And we already have all the Airbnb listings. And if we get 1,000 people that come here from all over the world for this festival on year one, you can imagine next year, the year after, people are going to be booking like a couple of years ahead. And it's always the week before Carnival. So we can actually do the marketing material 2 years ahead. And we can make those projections and predictions with the companies that we want to speak with in 2 years. That's crazy. We can't make predictions now in the market for 2 hours. You know what I'm saying? So the only way we're able to do all of this is through AI. And that's why this Hibernation Festival is related to artificial intelligence and blockchain and programming and machine learning and things that manage systems like BitWage. Ultimately, it's not people that are doing this. These are computers and supercomputers that require very cold air conditioning. And that's why now, like even here in our waters, the deep waters, Google's already starting to talk about putting these data mines in the ocean, like deep, and running that cold water through so that these quantum processors don't fry. These things are moving so fast that it's like beyond light speed. So we're not even talking atomic. We're talking quantum in an area of just unimaginable power. I mean, but it's not strong power. It's not meant to like destroy. It's power for sustainability and for joy. We don't have to like vibrate high and jump around and be like, that's not what we're talking about, right, Fabiano? Especially on the island, people come here. We're usually in peace, and we don't do a lot of talking. Nature talks to us and guides us, and so that's the idea. Is through these podcasts. Like right now, we've got about 10 minutes left before I know you got to go for your next meeting, so you can wrap it up, Fabiano. But that's where we're at. Is this event coming up in a couple of weeks? I could really, really, really use a little bit of a push. It's like in a sporting event. This is the final. The clock is ready to go. Bing. We don't have to worry about all of the stresses that are prior or any of the anxiety about what's going on and going to happen in the future. This is a gateway this week, the 8 days and 7 nights, the Hibernation Festival, the first annual. So maybe you can speak, maybe add a little bit of what your interpretation is, however you want to go about it. And then what we'll plan on doing is the next time we get together will be hopefully during that 8 day or 7 night, sometime during that period. And we want to put a round table together and invite like Mel Carmine. I don't know if he'll come on, but we don't want like all similar minded people. We want to have like a debate. And then when we come out of that 8 days, we want to be making investment decisions in our lives, which basically for me is buy your own time. Take your money, maybe not all of it, but get a portfolio and buy these time credits. You can get 2,000 time credits in every market, in every country. You can't get more than that. There's no reason to have more than 2,000 hours if you visit anywhere. That gives you enough stimulus. You go into the local market and you can start trading your time and you can start whatever. You do everything. Anything money could do, you do with time, but you don't pay that transactional fee. And it also doesn't require a mining process. So there's no additional energy requirement. And that's one of the negatives about Bitcoin. But I'll let you go ahead. We got 10 minutes left, Fabiano. We're moving. This is a daily thing, a work in progress. So go ahead. I'm going to let you chime in. Go ahead.
No, once again, from beginning to end, or better yet, from ending to beginning. Of course, like you said, you mentioned earlier that, of course, nothing is perfect. Everything has its perks and its difficulties. When the Bitcoin was designed, some conversations that were done in forums, even including Satoshi, was that the development would be for people sharing their own computational power, meaning their own computers, leaving them on, and providing those computer power to the network of Bitcoin. So at the same time that we have our computers on and somewhat idle because we're not, really pushing the processing power of our computers at all times. Just think of the cell phone in your pocket for how long it's being used. It's just there, just waiting for something to happen. But what happened is that because it is developed so that is a competition, the mining is like competition between computers. And once people, it smelled, what was cooking behind there, they all got attracted to it. And then they started creating more and more powerful chips. And then mining became this super infrastructure project that, you know, uh, that is today like draining a lot of resources, raising the price of computers for the average person because of the market of chips. Of course, at the same time, once again, back to the positive, the network of Bitcoin has to be something so powerful as to maintain its qualities despite all that. So the human greed has to be something in the equation of Bitcoin because that cannot be taken away. Even the people's, bad intention to, have as much money as they can so they can rule over the world and having people do whatever they want with it, and as obscure as those intentions may be, Bitcoin has to be stronger than that. I mean, it has to be a means of money for the person to do the right thing and for the person to do the bad thing also. Okay, so it has to be a system because if we're talking about the security of information, it has to be safe from everything. It cannot be it's technology of security of information, but depends on, and that's the real problem of government actually and government systems in general, because they are a system, they are well, seems to be well built, the three powers or the party, whatever you may create with your mind as a system of power, but at the end of the day, it depends on the goodwill of people. I guess that's the one thing of Bitcoin over all the other systems that we have in place in humanity today. It doesn't depend on the good intentions of people, and it counts with the bad intentions of people because they will be there. Okay. And once again, I think that I mean, of course, David called me here. He wants to for that to be positive for Bitcoin. If you're in the US, you're probably considering receiving part of your salary into Bitcoin. You should, I could recommend that further. And but I think that one thing that also this call can be as useful for is for more people to try and understand, try to get to know Ilha das Couves, where David is located, try to see if there's anything they can do to contribute. And like I said, try to be in tune with the communication, with the things that the island represent, and try to make that into, try to have that be something that can be positive for many people. I think there's a great potential there. David has been living there for years now. It's really incredible. It's not easy to live on an island like he does. You may imagine because there's a house there. It's just like living in any other place, but that's not quite the case. That's things you can only really understand by once you're there, right? And and that's why I invite people to get to know the island, to get to know not only to receive their wages in Bitcoin, which is something really healthy, but on the same trend of of health is to get to know what's going on at the island, try to see what the history of it and what can be done with that land and many other pieces of land actually, not only there in that region but around the world that can be can be used, sustainably explored and informed, communicated to the world. I guess the key is communication that can be spread, around and contribute somehow to, the better forms of, usage of land and labor. Okay, I guess that's what about what it is. That's what about that's what the whole time coin idea of David is about. It's about better usage of labor and better use. Well, I guess that's the focus and the one last message I wanted to leave. Bitcoin might be a lot of energy. It's like a really scary amount of energy being used, but it's being used for better labor, for better communication between people, and I think that's the one thing that the island is also have in common. The island can be a potential for better usage of labor and of energy of people and communication between people.
Fabio,
That's the
thank
one
you so
message I wanted to
much.
leave.
Yeah, this has been super educational. For somebody like myself that doesn't know anything about any of this, getting a very clear understanding of Bitcoin, where it's at, how it's created the foundational space for everything to come underneath it. And you made a key point earlier where you said that any coins that are going to be backed would want to be backed by Bitcoin. And that was a pretty profound statement because it really shows you how integrated Bitcoin has become. And I think the main thing for somebody like myself and probably others is just knowing that it's secure, it's safe, and knowing what the morals and values of Bitcoin are, I think really does, give me a lot more understanding of that and more understanding of what to look for. And then with somebody like yourself and David being very knowledgeable, and then getting the time coins and the time credits and all that, and integrating that in, and having somebody like yourself and David already pushing forward on where the future really lies, where all of our time is going to have value. That's a very exciting future, and I'm very lucky and very honored to have you and David always on these calls because it's super educational and we're scripting out and showing where the future is going and actively taking a part in that. So thank you so much for your time today. With that being said, David, as we always do, we got 3 minutes, but I want to throw
Yes.
it to Fabiano for a last word, and then David to yourself, and then we'll go ahead and shut it down here at the top of the hour.
Well, thank you, Sean. Thank you for having me. If you guys need me, we can always find time. It was a great pleasure to be here. Um, if you guys want to access my networks, I'm not a great social media hoggle, to be honest. I kind of resisted using social media for quite a long time in my life, but you can find me on at Biano Diaz. I'm gonna leave us some networks here. I'm really more open to. I'm more keen on one-to-one conversations than on to, the whole. I have a problem with browsing, as well as browsing, zapping, all these kind of things. They give you, it gives you that feeling that you don't know what direction you wanted to go. So, and you don't know what direction you want to go, you're probably lost. And I don't like to feel lost, so I tend not to browse or zap on things, you know. Or otherwise, I feel guilty. I mean, because sometimes you have a book or a movie you wanted to watch for a long time, and now you're just zapping or browsing. Why not to reading or watching that thing that you wanted to watch for so long, and you're zapping instead? But I'm gonna leave my networks. David has my contact for anyone that wants to know more about what we do. Be that in the island on BitWage, I'm at your disposal. And it was a great time here. And thanks once again. And if you guys, need me again, let's just find some good time for everybody. Okay.
Definitely
Thank you
will look
again,
forward to
Sean.
that, Fabiano. Thank you. David, we got 1 minute. Anything you want to say?
Yeah, I just want to say that Fabiano, this has taken some time. If you recall, we've tried to do this, I don't know, 3 or 4 other times. So today is a real date with destiny. And it is a legacy date. It is a legacy
Nice.
date. So, and the trials and tribulations that I face all the time because I'm not like most people, maybe even like Sean. My phone doesn't ring. I'm the outbound. I'm an outbound. I'm not a call center, like to bring, like take a call and like a, order taker. I am involved with connecting people. And through doing that, it's all about the unity that comes from that. And that's brotherhood and sisterhood and all of the ministries of faith and really, like you said, the goodwill. That's really, in business, if you can develop goodwill in your business, that's what you sell. You don't sell the piece of dirt in the building and the interior design and whatever. That's the goodwill, your client base, your loyal, the loyal following that you have. This is what friendship is, like real friendship, not like on the internet where like, we have thousands of friends on the like Facebook and not one of them really does anything for you. I mean, friends help each other, like this conversation right now. Fabiano is 9 years into this career that he has, and he also is reinventing himself. So what I'm saying to Fabiano, Sean, and everyone, this is an incubator. So when you come here, like Fabiano, it doesn't really spend that much time here, like really concentrated effort, like asking like me and in the group, all of us, for help if he needs help or anyone needs help. And I'm not talking about, sometimes it's mental health and emotional and stuff like that. That I'm talking about business. What do we need to do to create more jobs that are satisfying for the workforce? And that is what BitWage is about. It's about the culture of going to work. And if we're going to work, why not get compensated 24 credits a day? If you're going to work your butt off, and even if you don't, like me, I've worked, like I said, 200,000 hours, my wife and I here on the island. We didn't get paid for that, but that is in the bank account. That is in the history books. And there's nobody that can say that we don't deserve to return on our investment. It's a simple business transaction. It is environmentally sensitive with climate change and all of the other things that we deal with. We're going to be speaking on all of these topics, controversial issues. Is the earth flat? What about ET and the disclosure and all of these things, SpaceX, on and on. We're going to have 24 hours for 8 days. That's 192 hours of content when it's going to be rich like this so that people like that didn't know Fabiano, like your phone and your pipeline is going to fill up so quick and people are going to understand the importance of making that intermediary transaction between BitWage and Bitcoin and now Timecoin. Because the way I see it, BitWage and Bitcoin are one side of the equation. It's a combination. It's like a tag team in professional wrestling. You got somebody you can tag, and somebody's going to come in there. Either you go with Bitcoin or you go with the BitWage. Game over. There's no company that doesn't experience those pressures with the financial requirements of overhead and then the labor. And most companies, labor right now is 60 or 70%. And so profit margins have really been eating alive by labor and the rising cost of like minimum wage and whatever, which we can get into during this 8 days in all of these subjects. And so Fabiano, Sean, anyone listening to this, like Fabiano said, really the path of communication is to get back to Sean. This is really Sean's hour. This is Sean's podcast. I tend to take on a lot of the conversation right now only because this pressure for me is the milestone is coming up in 2 weeks on the 21st. It's a very lucky day in this February 2025. This is going to be a game changer for anyone that accesses the information while we're recording for those 8 days. It's going to be a game changer for their life. I guarantee you that they say that that was the most valuable time that they ever spent in their whole entire life. And so that's the promise. Thank you very much for everybody. Sean, wrap it up and we'll continue tomorrow. I think we have a call tomorrow, right? Don't
We
we with
do.
yeah. Okay, we talk about that, like some of the housekeeping stuff. But if anyone like Fabiano, if you have people that have podcasts or any other channel and they need to get that message out, it can be a regular program like every day, hourly. We got 24 hours, so we can get 24 partners, or it could be spontaneous. where people basically eventually they rent the time to take that 1 hour. So there is a compensation for them to get in on the schedule, obviously. Otherwise, there would be no, we got to set some standard, you know? And so that's what I'm ending here. We're open. Anybody that has ideas in broadcasting, journalism, fact checking, statistics, mathematics, computation, all walks. Let's work together. So go ahead. Let's wrap it up. This is February 4th on Tuesday.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, once again, thank you so
guys.
much,
Have a
Fabiano.
great
It's been an
day.
absolute
See you
pleasure.
around.
Can't wait to see you and talk to you again. And
Same
Hibernation
here.
Festival, February 21st to March 1st. Get a hold of us here. Get a hold of David. And thank you, everybody, for your time. God bless you. Same time, same place tomorrow.
Ciao.
Ciao.